Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the beautiful Brandi Aguilar. Brandi, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am awesome. A lot better now. It is nice to officially meet you.
Yes, you too.
I got to give a huge shout out to my boy Gory Bits. He made this happen. Thank you so much, Gory. I love you to death.
He's awesome.
Yes. Now, before we start talking about why you're here, Brandi, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You were born and raised in the LA suburbs, and your acting career spans nearly 25 years. You've been in countless movies, TV shows, commercials, stage plays, as well as a voice actress, and you've done voiceovers for a couple different cartoons. So, when you've had such an extensive catalog, how did you get started in acting?
Wow. Okay, so I started in acting when I was really young. As a child, I danced up until age 9. And then at age 9, I was like, I don't want to dance anymore. I want to do acting. So I quit dancing to become an actress. And then when I was 10, I got my first agent out here in LA. And because I, live so close here in LA, I got to start my career super young. So that was a lot of fun. And I started doing everything you can think of: commercials, plays, TV shows, modeling, starting at the age of 9 or 10. So I've been in it for more than half my life at this point, probably about 75% of my life. And it's been quite a journey, but I'm so grateful for all of the experience. I've met so many incredible people. My parents were, when I was, a kid, my parents were really good at watching over me in, during my acting career. I feel like they raised me very well and were always open and honest with me. You're going to get rejected a lot. That they would tell me that when I first started acting when I was little. They would tell me, you're going to get rejected a lot. It's a lot of hard work. So I was never blindsided by all the hard work and everything that comes with having an entertainment career. And I've pursued other interests as well. I went to college. I have my BA, Bachelor of Arts degree in communications, speech and communication rhetoric. And I went to college by the beach. It was so much fun and the weather was amazing.
Yeah.
And yes, because I was pretty much born and raised in Santa Clarita, California, since I was like a year old, and it's more inland. It's not really towards the beach. So it gets really hot here in the summer. It's a desert. It's like a desert town, but the beach is my happy place. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not just that, but acting, being on the beach, doing all these different things, as well as, you love punk, you love metal concerts. And you recently started training in ballet. So when you talk about like some of your musical influences, who would you say your top 5 favorite bands are?
Oh, that's so hard to narrow down because there's so many bands out there that I absolutely love. I would say I think the first band that really, really had an influence on me was probably The Doors. I love The Doors. I love Jim Morrison. And he's one of my biggest celebrity crushes as well. But I have this thing where I feel like I wasn't born in the right time period. So I'm a huge fan of the 60s. That's one of my like top decades. And The Doors fits right into that time period. I want to say I became a huge fan of The Doors, like diehard, when I was about 14 or 15. And I know like all of their song lyrics, like the back of the palm of my hand. So they've had a huge influence on me, and I go to a lot of like tribute concerts, and I've seen the guitarist Robbie Krieger live on stage. That I was about to die because I've worshipped The Doors, since I was very young. I would say another one of my top absolute bands that I'm obsessed with is Depeche Mode. The 80s is
nice.
Yes. Oh, hell yeah. I love Depeche Mode. I love Depeche Mode. I take it you're a fan too. So that
I love Depeche Mode. Yeah.
Oh, heck yes. We're gonna be great friends then. Yeah, Depeche Mode is incredible. It's another one of my favorite, time periods that I wish I was alive in, which was, the 80s, I love the 80s, and Depeche Mode was really influential in like the goth post-punk, very new wave, 80s type of music. And I love that. I don't know, I love their sound. I love their lyrics. Their sound is very, typical of what you would find in the 80s, but they make it their own. But I love a lot of their 90s music as well. Their Depeche Mode is really good at going by musical trends, but also keeping the sound, their own sound, of which made them successful in the first place. They're really, really good at that. I love Depeche Mode. The lead singer of Depeche Mode, Dave Gahan, is like another one of my celebrity crushes. And I'm jealous of his wife. She's a lucky woman. And me and my boyfriend actually recently saw a Depeche Mode live in concert back in March. And it was incredible. I got my boyfriend hooked on Depeche Mode, and I didn't know that he was into Depeche Mode, and then I was like, oh my God, Depeche Mode is going on tour, and this is like the first time in 5 years that they're going on tour. And I'm like, we have to go. I will sell my soul to go see Depeche Mode live. I would do anything for Depeche Mode. And so I bought the tickets, and we went in March of this year. They were at the Forum here in LA, and we had such a great time. Oh, it was incredible. It's crazy to see a band that you've worshipped your like entire life live on stage. It's an unreal experience. And seeing Dave and Martin Gore, he's he's another part of Depeche Mode and has written a lot of their hit songs. It's crazy to see them live, and I couldn't believe I was breathing the same oxygen as them. And then gosh, there are so many. It's so hard to pinpoint the next 3 out of 5 bands though. I love a lot of new wave. I love a lot of metal. I love a lot of 60s and 70s death metal. What I say is the harder the metal, the better. So the kind of metal that I like is like the lead singer sounds like they're dying while they're singing the song. Because it's not good metal if they don't sound like they're dying. That's what I always say. Yes. And so I want to say recently some good like new wave metal. I like a lot of new wave one-hit wonders. But again, it's so hard to pinpoint my top because I think I just love them all. I will say I love 80s metal. The 80s metal, some of the 80s metal bands that I like is the band Death. That's a really great band. Their debut album, it was one of their first albums, was incredible. I've listened to the entire album. It's kind of what got me into, like hardcore metal in the first place. And I want to say, gosh, to pinpoint a 4th band. Oh, right now, that's such a tough question. You're good at asking these questions because I am stumped. There's so much good music out there.
Right.
Let's see. I love Janis Joplin.
Oh yeah.
I love her voice. And she was here for too short of a time because I would have loved to have seen what else she would have done, as the 70s went on and into the 80s and 90s. She had a great voice and a unique voice. She had that very I don't know if scratchy, I don't want to sound like I'm insulting her because I'm not, but she had such a unique voice.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. Like she had that, there was definitely an air about her that was just like hypnotic almost.
Yes, I felt like she was just so cool. Like I feel like I wouldn't have felt cool enough to even like be in her presence because she was just she was so rad. I've seen her interviews and she just comes across as like the biggest sweetheart, and she was just here for too short of a time. She was the 27 Club, both her and Jim Morrison. And let's see, fifth one. Oh gosh. I'm looking at my wall because I have a bunch of bands that I love on my wall in my room. Oh, I love Eurythmics. That's another new wave band that I really love. I believe they're from Scotland, and yeah, I believe they're Scottish, and that's lead singer's Anne Lennox. And I've always loved her voice too. And I remember hearing her songs when I was really little, played on the radio all the time. And I want to say, some of her songs is probably the first songs I've ever heard in my life.
Okay.
In 80, oh, I cannot forget Madonna. Gotta love 80s Madonna. I love her, and I love a lot of her newer stuff too. I think she can do no wrong. Her music is incredible. I love her music and her outfits, and just she seemed like she was unstoppable in the 80s, and she's unstoppable now. She's in her 60s and still, playing sold out concerts. So I've always loved her, and I would say probably one of her entire music career. Some of her music, I think, was probably some of the first songs I've ever heard in my life as well on the radio.
Sure. And then when you get those, you still let those influence you today. Like, that's always super, super special.
It is, yes. Queen. I love Freddie Mercury. I could go on and on. It's so hard to pinpoint who your favorite bands are. It's definitely a question that stumps me for sure, because there's just so much good music out there. But I will say that, with the exception of rock and metal, I don't really listen to a lot of contemporary music. One rock band that I highly recommend is the Pretty Reckless.
Okay.
They're amazing. Yes, they're incredible. If you're into, rock is not really what do you call it? Just the mainstream these days. But rock has always been kind of like one of my favorite genres. So I listen to a lot of rock.
Yeah, I grew up very much in the punk and metal scene. Always been a huge fan of punk rock. That's been my favorite since I was a little kid.
Me too.
First time I heard Rancid, it completely changed my life. So
yes. Oh God, yes.
So guys, if you want to know more about Brandi and what she's doing, I have all her social media links down in the description. So make sure you are following along with her so you can stay up to date on all the things that she has coming up in her life. Now, we know kind of what you're doing right now. Like I said, you've been an actor for a very long time. You're actually starting to get trained in ballet as well. But now, here for a second, Brandi, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Brandi, the first horror movie you watched was?
Poltergeist. It was at my friend's 13th birthday party. She had a spooky sleepover, and we all gathered around the TV and watched Poltergeist. And very creepy movie. Yes. Oh, hell yes. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's something about 80s horror movies that I think a lot of contemporary horror movies don't have today. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's the special effects were just so well done at that time, where they didn't have as much maybe CGI as they do today.
Sure.
So it just looked so gory, and people weren't really afraid to go all out there. With Poltergeist, though, I think what spooked me out, one of the spooky things about that movie is a lot of their cast passed away pretty young. And under just kind of strange circumstances. There's a theory that there's a poltergeist curse, although
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either. Yeah, I think it's just unfortunate circumstances, because the girl who played Carol Ann, she was only 12 when she died, which is awful.
If you get the chance, I can't recommend it enough. There's a TV show on Shudder called Cursed Films, where they talk about films that are cursed. And they do a really deep dive into Poltergeist. And they talk about how Dana, she was killed because she had a crazy boyfriend that strangled her. Heather O'Rourke died because she had a misdiagnosis. She was diagnosed as having Crohn's disease.
It's something with her intestines.
Yeah, but she really had a bowel obstruction, and she was getting poisoned. And it's, again, I can't recommend it enough. They go so deep into detail, and it's a beautifully written show. All the episodes are fantastic. But that's one episode that really stuck out to me. And they say, and I agree with one of the things they said. They're like, you're really doing a huge disservice to these young women by putting it on a curse, not what it really was. One was killed by a human being that was absolutely crazy and ruined this young lady and her family's life, and strangled her to death. And then the other was, a medical misdiagnosis. This 12-year-old girl lost her life over it. And a big part of that is they used real skeletons in the swimming pool. Those weren't fake skeletons. Those were real life skeletons. And they have a guy on there that's like, yeah, every movie back then used real life skeletons because it's cheaper. Just like when you go into science class, that's a real skeleton there. He's like, back then when you're doing practical effects in the 80s, it was cheaper to go out and get a real human skeleton. So
it was.
Yeah, not every movie is cursed because they use real life skeletons. So that's one of the things. Again, if you have Shudder, I cannot recommend enough. Watch cursed films. I think you'll really enjoy it. They have that. They have The Exorcist. They have The Twilight Zone. It's a fantastic documentary series. It's one of my favorites. It's very well written. They have a lot of people that come in and give really deep dives into what they've done with their research. It's a fantastically done documentary series. So I can't recommend that.
That does sound really interesting.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderfully done.
Cursed films. Okay. Yep. I'll have to check that out.
On the streaming service Shudder. Again, my favorite streaming service. Sponsor me, Shudder. But this is one of those things that Poltergeist, the thing a lot of people forget too is Poltergeist is a very scary film. A very, very scary film.
Oh my gosh.
Very and it's rated scary. PG. Like, people forget, like, this movie is a PG rating. Granted, they didn't have PG-13 at the time, but I still think this is one of the best PG horror movies of all time. Now,
it is.
Do you remember which scene, Brandi, it was that affected you the most?
I think it was right in the beginning when Carol Ann is walking down the stairs, and she puts both feet on each stair. So she walks a little bit slower, and the lighting, it's like lightning on her face. And it just flashes off and on. And not to mention, my friends and I watched it in the dark. It was like 12 midnight and it was in the dark. So that made it even spookier. And when you're 13 years old, it is equal parts spooky and just so freaking cool. Yeah. So it was, and we stayed up all night. And after the movie, we just were like frozen. We were so creeped out. And then we started playing like spooky games and everything, things that 13-year-old children do. Right. And it was the perfect night and the perfect setting to watch a spooky movie like Poltergeist. And there's 3 of those films. But I think the first one, they're all well done, but the first one is like the icing on the cake, in my opinion.
It's so funny because
well done.
Yeah. Like, you had the original trilogy, then you had the remake in 2015.
Oh God.
For me, it goes backwards, actually. I think that part 3 is my favorite, then 2, then 1. And again, I love Poltergeist. I think the movie's fantastic. I think it's wonderfully done. But when you go back and you watch Poltergeist 3 and you see all the amazing things that happen in that movie, it's very scary. The effects with mirrors, all the things that happened in Poltergeist 3. And you realize that Heather O'Rourke was doing that as she was dying, this 12-year-old. Her cheeks are puffy from all the medication she's taking.
Oh, it's so horrible.
And she's out there just, and she's just still, being a goddess on screen. And, but again, I love the whole franchise. I don't hate the remake like everybody else does. Ashley and I recently went back and rewatched the remake because we do another segment on the show called Versus, where we talk about an original and a remake. We verse them against each other. And we went back and watched the remake, and I don't hate this movie the way a lot of people do. I think that, one, we were watching the commentary, and they purposely changed the names of all the characters. That way Heather O'Rourke would be Carol Ann forever. And I thought that was special. I thought that was wonderful.
That is special. That's nice. Yeah.
Even Maddie, the girl, the character Maddie, she's the complete opposite of Carol Ann. She's dark hair, dark eyes, different name. And I thought that was really awesome. And I thought some of the CG effects in the movie were okay. The biggest thing about it is it's just so forgettable because the original has so many amazing moments, like the part where the guy's ripping his own face apart in the bathroom mirror. You have that moment, and you don't get a moment like that in the remake that is super. You get one that's close, but it's not anything like what that is. Or the moment where the mom is talking to Carol Ann and she walks away and she looks down into the cupboard and she's looking around and she turns around and all the chairs have been stacked up on the table. And
So
it's all one
creepy,
shot.
right?
But
Yes.
yeah, and it just,
So
there's just
creepy.
moments in the original that you go back and you watch now. Even me as a 37-year-old man, I'm like, that's fucking impressive. The way that they pulled these scenes off back in 1982 what is just fucking beautiful. You know, you have Spielberg, you have Tobe Hooper that are just out there killing it. And I will always say this is a Tobe Hooper movie. Spielberg helped produce it, but this is a Tobe Hooper movie. So you got this guy that's doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's doing Poltergeist. The guy knows what he's doing when he's making films. And, you know, to be a 13-year-old young lady watching this movie, I'm sure it's a little bit more effective too, because you're watching a peer. You're seeing another young, I mean, she's younger than you at this point, but you see another young lady going through all this crazy shit. And I'm sure that has to be pretty scary for you. Do you think that you being a young lady when you were watching this, do you think that, you know, watching Carol Ann, who is almost a peer to you, do you think that has a little bit more impact when you were watching the film?
I think it did. And it also had an impact on me that she died so young, at 12 years old, because that doesn't happen very often. So it made it even more spookier that she didn't even make it into her teens. And God, she would probably be like close to 50 today, like in her very late 40s. So it's weird to think about, you know, the movie itself is so spooky, but it's also weird to think about that in her actual life, she didn't get to live a full life. And it's kind of like, I heard that she was like very proud of those Poltergeist movies. And, you know, I think she left her mark on this world, even though she wasn't here for very long. And that's not something everybody can say who even lived to be like 80 years old. She is an important staple in horror history and is a giant horror icon. And it would just feel weird to do anything Poltergeist related or see anything Poltergeist related without her in it. Because I think audiences got so attached to the original cast. But yeah, that's what made it really extra spooky, is knowing that, you know, she passed away so young, that the teenage sister passed away so young. You know, she had a crazy boyfriend. It's weird. It's even weirder that all this stuff, you know, because LA is right in my backyard. A lot of Poltergeist was filmed not far from where I live. It's, you know, in the San Fernando Valley, and it's so eerie to think about, because these places I've been driving by my entire life. So I haven't seen the Poltergeist house in person, but I do know exactly where it's at. And I do want to visit it one day. One day I will. I'm just scared. Maybe at night to make it even more spookier.
Right. So we talked a little bit about the remake. Have you seen the Poltergeist remake?
I have not. I was kind of like going back and forth about seeing it, because I was just like, is it going to ruin, you know, the first 3 films for me? Did it ruin it for you? It sounded like you really loved it.
No, I mean, like, I wouldn't say I loved it. It was okay. But the good thing is, like, they didn't do a lot of what they did in the first one. They didn't try to me, the way that you ruin a remake for me is if you go in and you try to do all the exact same things they did in the original and just do CGI instead of practical effects. And this movie did not do that. There's at least 3 or 4 scenes in this movie that are genuinely scary. Or there are like 2 or 3 very, very good jump scares in the Poltergeist remake.
It's me, honey.
I think the big problem with it is, if it would have been its own original movie, I think that it would have been received better. But what they did in this movie that made me respect it so much was you casted somebody else instead of Carol Ann. You gave her a different name. Her name is Maddie in this movie. The spiritual helper is not Tangina. It's a male in this movie. They didn't want to recast Zelda Rubinstein's character. You cannot recast Tangina. You can't get another Carol Ann. You can't get that. So rather than trying to duplicate it, they respected they honored their memories. They respected what they did, and they made these characters completely different. Now, if the original Poltergeist had never happened and I had just seen this one, I probably would have loved the movie. But there are similarities that I can't forgive. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but like there's a comic book stacking instead of the chair stacking, and it's very CGI looking, and that kind of stuff bothers me. But when it comes to remakes, it at least did what I love, and it takes the idea of the first one and makes it its own. They don't try to duplicate what the first one's already been done, and it's already been done very well. Don't try to redo that because you're going to fail. And the filmmakers going in knew that. They knew they had to take this movie and make it their own. And like I said, there are a lot of very good jump scares. There's one part that's a huge homage to Poltergeist 3, which I thought was really cool.
That is cool.
So they do a lot of honoring of the old ones. Like there's a moment where the sister is walking and there's this black puddle, and the hand comes up and pulls her down, just like in Poltergeist 3 when Carol Ann is out in the garage. So there's a couple really cool moments like that. I would honestly say if you get the chance to check out the Poltergeist remake, at least check it out. It's at least worth the watch.
I will.
Like I said, the care that they put into the movie to make sure that it was different enough while also honoring the memory of what happened in the first one, I thought that was great. I thought the way that they honored everything was amazing, because you don't get that a lot. What can we do to make money? What can we do to make money? They didn't do that. Now, obviously, they were trying to make money because that's why they did a Poltergeist remake. But they also wanted to make it sincere, and that's special to me. That's what I like to see. So,
that's good.
We talked about your first horror movie being Poltergeist and what that movie means to you. But now, Brandi, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball here at you for a second.
Sure.
My buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Of course.
What's your favorite scary movie, Brandi?
Oh, hi, Ghostface.
What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, my favorite horror movie. That is a very good question. I think I have a good story for you. Okay, so I think a horror movie that did, other than Poltergeist, one that really did its job in like scaring me was the newer Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I have a story about that, if that's okay.
Of course.
Oh my God. Okay, so this actually I saw when I was 14, and I spent the night at my friend's house, and it was also late at night, and we're like, let's scare ourselves. Let's watch the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we watched it. It was very scary. Afterwards, we had the absolute stupidest idea to bring out my friend's Ouija board. And we did, and we had like candles and everything, and really spooky. Nothing happened until we put the Ouija board away, and then her phone rang. And we picked it up, and nobody was on the other line. The phone was dead. That was spooky. Right after we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre and play the Ouija board, like what are the chances of that happening? And then her TV that we left on after watching the movie turned off by itself.
Yeah,
so that was very spooky. Yeah. And so ever since then, I will not touch the Ouija board. Like my sister bought one a long time ago, and I'm like, you better get that out. Get that out of the house now. I'm going to bless our house with holy water. But
it's so funny because I'm 37. I've been a horror fan my whole life. Never touched a Ouija board. Growing up, my mom and my grandma were like, nope, not bringing that devil shit in my house.
Yes. Yeah, I've only done it twice. The first time I played it, I was like in middle school, and I asked when I was going to die. It said I was going to die December 31st, 2002. I'm still here. So that was wrong. But I will not mess with it. And then the second time was, that time we watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I will not touch it. I will not mess with it. My sister got rid of it, so we're good now. But it's one thing that I will not mess with. I've heard too many creepy stories alongside my own creepy story. Yeah, I don't recommend it. I recommend staying as far away as possible.
10 out of 10 wouldn't recommend. So I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, and some of your personal experiences. But before I let you go, Brandi, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to Poltergeist, and what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking Poltergeist on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing here is strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Brandi, what would your ranking of the original Poltergeist be?
Oh my gosh, definitely probably like a 4.5. It was horrifying. And just along with the atmosphere, you know, just like the lights are turned off, we're eating a bunch of candy, no light whatsoever. Like her parents were asleep in the other room and the whole house had no lights on. And just knowing that everyone, well, not everybody, but a lot of the main cast passed away so young, it was so spooky. So 4.5 skulls for sure.
And I do want to remind everybody, I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we are at the end of the 3rd act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I do have all of Brandi's social media links down in the description. So please make sure you're following her so you can stay up to date on all the amazing things that she has coming up for us here in the future. Brandi, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay who you are, and we'll see you guys soon.